Hey guys, my name is Pat Hamilton, and this is Hamilton Handmade. So about 8 years ago, I traveled to England with some of my closest friends. Not only was this my first time out of the country, but it was also my first time ever on a plane. Needless to say, this was a life-changing trip, and it's one that I will never forget. Now, leading into my trip to England, I decided that I needed to do it big across the pond. So the very first thing that I packed for my trip was a smoking jacket and an English pipe. Now at the time, my funds were pretty low, so that smoking jacket ended up just being a bathrobe from Goodwill, and I decided to make my own smoking pipe. Now, the very first English pipe that I made is right here. The stem is actually broken up into small little pieces and glued back together. That way I could get a curve within. And also the actual pipe portion of it is very large. This was my very first one, and ultimately it ended up just looking like a toilet bowl on a stick. Now, after I made this first pipe, I enjoyed it so much that I decided to make more and decided to keep on working to try to perfect this craft. Now the stems I now purchase online. Those are just plastic pieces that slide into the bowl of the pipe itself. Now, one of my close buddies that I traveled across the pond with, he has a birthday coming up, and I thought this would be a perfect opportunity and excuse to make another pipe to gift to him. So today, I'm gonna show you how I turn a piece of lumber just like this into an English smoking pipe. I start out by tracing an outline of my pipe shape. I draft a side view and top view for reference before I begin carving. Next, I take my lumber to the bandsaw where I roughly cut out the side shape. In the process of cutting my side view, I cut off part of my top outline. Using a trick that I learned from one of my favorite YouTubers, and of all trades, I attach this piece back using painter's tape. That way I have a reference point for my top cut. After my rough shape is created, I use the pipe stem that I purchased online to determine the placement of the holes of my pipe. I plan to drill a medium-sized hole for my pipe stem to fit into, followed by a small hole that leads to the larger opening of my pipe. I pick out my drill bits and tape off the necessary depth on each bit prior to heading to the old drill press. Now that the inside of the pipe is complete, I trace off some reference points to help shape the pipe into its final size. Using a Dremel tool, I begin shaping the pipe, paying attention to the natural curve in the grain of my lumber. This is the most time-consuming part of the project, but I find it so rewarding to see a piece of lumber that started out as a block turn into something useful and meaningful. Once I have the shape that I want, I start hand sanding to smooth out the lumber as much as possible. I find it useful to wrap sandpaper around a pencil to keep constant pressure on the curves of the pipe. All right, now we're done sanding it completely. We've gone step by step down with the sandpaper to make sure that we have a clean, smooth surface. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with the way that that turned out. I think it's gonna look gorgeous once we get a finish on it. I'm gonna go ahead and try to clean this up a little bit, just try to get some of this loose sawdust off both this tip and the piece that we've been working on. I'm gonna use some mineral spirits and just rub it down, try to get all that gunk off before I begin the finishing process. Whenever you're working with any chemicals or any stains, be sure to always wear some gloves. It's always a plus not to have gigantic hands, so that gloves actually fit. If you struggle like I just did, be sure to grab extra large gloves. All right, now I'm gonna begin rubbing off all of the sawdust Now we don't want to douse this down, we just want just enough for it to clean off the material. Okay, we're gonna let that dry just a little bit before we add on our finish. Now that our mineral spirits is dried, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the first layer of my finish. Now I'm gonna go with some Danish oil on this, just some natural Danish oil. I love the way that that looks on this pecan, and I'm gonna go ahead and douse that down on this wood piece. It's already looking pretty great. Now, this is an all-in-one product. I'm using Watco Danish oil, just the natural finish. I can just leave it like this, but more than likely, I'm probably gonna go over it with another clear coat. I know that for the most part, this pipe is gonna be held in your hand, and those greases from your fingers are gonna rub off onto that pipe, and I want to be sure that it is covered completely and sealed. That way it doesn't ruin the finish. Now, Watco does recommend that you wait 72 hours for this to dry before you add on a clear coat. So I'll see you guys in a couple of days. All right. It looks like our Danish oil has finally dried on our pipe. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this off with a clear coat. I think I'm gonna go with a satin clear finish on this. Just gonna use some polyurethane. I think that's gonna give it just a nice shine, but won't be too much. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw on some gloves and begin working away. I really need some larger gloves. All right, I have this random piece of foam that I had laying around the shop. I'm gonna use this to kind of hold up my pieces of my pipe. I have a little screw just right in there just to hold up that wood piece that we worked on, and then I'm just gonna shove that mouthpiece just right inside of that foam as well so we get a good coat of clear coat on there. Gonna be real careful to get an even finish. I do want to try to avoid the inside of this. Ultimately, that's going to be where you would smoke the tobacco out of. So there will be a good bit of heat, and I don't want that clear coat to bubble. But I'm going to try just for a smooth, thin coat for this first job. I'm going to work it with my hands as much as I can, and then I'll place it on the screw afterwards. Give it a quick look over, make sure I didn't miss anything. Now there are a few bubbles in here. You want to make sure to smooth those out as best you can. Luckily, I have a real bright light shining on this so I could see those imperfections a little bit easier. All right, everything looks pretty good. It looks pretty smooth. I'm going to go ahead and let that dry, and then once that's done, I'll consider putting on another coat after. All right, the second application of clear coat went on pretty smooth. I don't think I need to do any more work after that. And I guess we'll go ahead and call this project done. Love the way that it turned out. The mouthpiece even turned out pretty nice. I'm happy about that. Overall, just kind of did a little bit of finishing touches on that. That was a purchase piece. And then obviously we made the actual pipe portion. I'll go ahead and show you that close up just one more time. Love the grain that you can see on that. I think it really pops just fantastic. Even that bottom, you have a little bit of a knot right in there. Love the way that that looks. You can just really see that pecan pop out. So now we just got to try it, and then I will go ahead and and hand it off as a gift to my buddy. I think he's gonna be super stoked about it, and I can't wait to see his reaction. I would love to hear about your reaction. Go ahead and comment below. Tell me what you think about this video. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel to make sure that you don't miss another Hamilton Handmade project. My name is Pat Hamilton, and this was Hamilton Handmade.